Welcome back friends. This is the English video 2, the English translation of Hindi video 2. Today we will discuss prelims, mains and interview. Let's start with prelims. Let's say the form to be filled for prelims comes in Feb or March. You can fill it for 1 month approximately, and pre is conducted in June. Now there is coronavirus, so everything has hodgepodge, but this is generally the schedule. The result comes in 1 month at least, but in 2020, when prelims was conducted on 4th October, it was scheduled on 31st May 2020, but there was coronavirus and there was lockdown, so it was conducted on 4th October 2020. So the result came on 23rd or 24th, I think. So in 19 days, which is a record, the result came. Generally it takes 1 month. So result comes in July. After that you need to fill a form known as DAF 1, Detailed Application Form 1. In this form you need to give your details. You have given some details here. These are automatically populated here. These are automatically present here. You don't need to fill them again. You need to give additional details like your salary of parents, etc. And you have to upload your certificates regarding your claims. For example, your graduation. Graduation is compulsory to appear in this exam. Either you should be a graduate or you are about to graduate, that is in the last semester, etc. That is allowed. Then you get 15 to 20 days to fill this form. This happens in August generally. I am assuming pre happens in June in a normal time period, unlike these times which are the times of corona. So DAF 1, 15 to 20 days, August, the form is filled. After that the mains happens. Mains happens on 5 days and 10 calendar days are there. This mains happens in September to October. That is, you get 4 months after your prelims. Generally 3 to 4 months are there, that is 90 to 120 days. In normal times generally 120 days were given. 90 days were given in this prelims. For example, after the 4th October prelims, the mains happened from 8th to 17th January 2021, that is this year, 4-5 months ago. Today is 21st May 2021. So 8th to 17th Jan the mains happened. This 8 to 17 is equal to 10 days. Of these 10 days you are supposed to write this exam for 5 days. I will tell you later how exactly it happens. So considering the fact that pre is written by approximately 5 lakh people, 10 lakh fill the form. This form is filled by 10 lakh. 5 lakh appear in pre. This is because if you appear in pre, your attempt is counted. A lot of people fill this form because it only costs ₹100 and mains form costs ₹200. These are for general category. Unless specified otherwise, I am always talking about general category. Then mains happens. For example, my mains was on this, which I cleared. Considering the fact that 5 lakh people write pre, but this is an objective type paper, so OMR sheet is to be put in a computer, so result can come quickly. For example, it came in 19 days. After 4th October, it came on 23rd October, the result. In case of mains, 10,000 candidates are selected generally from the prelims, and each of them write 9 papers, and that too of subjective type. So 90,000 papers are to be checked by UPSC. So this generally takes 2 to 3 months time. 2 months time is generally the rule at least. For example, The last mains was written on 17th Jan. 17th Jan. So the result came near about 17th March. That is 2 months time. After the result has come, there is a call for interview. Out of 10,000 who write here, 8,000 fail and 2,000 are called for interview. I am assuming that the seats are 800. If the seats are 800, that is 800 candidates are to be finally selected, then approximately 2.5 times that number is called for interview. So 2,000 people are called for interview, and if 2,000 people are to be called for interview, approximately 5 times that number, write the mains, that is 10,000. So if posts come 1,000, then its 2.5 times means 2,500 will be called for interview, and its 5 times, that is approximately 12,500 will write the mains, will be selected from the prelims exam. As you can see, as the number of posts increase, the number of people selected increase at each stage, so cutoff decreases, cutoff goes down. But in general, what is happening is posts are decreasing, so from 800 posts can go to 600 in the future. In that case, as you can see, the whole cutoff will go up because less number of candidates are to be selected. So this is generally the rule. For example, 24 posts were to be selected in the previous year. From this year onwards, whose interview I am going to appear in that one, the posts have decreased from 24 to 21. 3 posts of railways have been taken away. I'll tell you the details later. So this is the prelim exam, this is the mains. Then there is interview. Considering the fact that interview is to be taken of 2,000 people, so UPSC can take approximately 50 candidates on one day. So 50 candidates per day. Therefore, 40 days are required. That is 2,000. So 40 days means approximately 1 month 10 days. 1 month 10 days. But UPSC works 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. So 40 days become 8 weeks. 40 divided by 5. So 8 weeks means approximately 2 months. So after the result comes on 17th March, UPSC declared that the interviews will commence from 26th April to 18th June 2021. I told you my interview was to be on 4th June, but now everything has been indefinitely postponed. So this is the schedule. After the last interview date, that is 18th June, result comes within 1 week. Within 1 week. So if the last candidate appears on 18th June, the final result will come latest by 25th June. This is the general schedule. In coronavirus, everything has been hodgepodge. Now, after the result comes, final cutoffs are there. Cutoffs are declared. What was the prelims cutoff? What was the mains cutoff? What was the interview cutoff? All this comes on after the result, generally within 10 days. So after 25th June, by let's say 5th July, it is declared. Cutoffs aren't, you aren't told the cutoffs, you aren't told your marks. Both cutoff and marks are declared after after the whole process is over and final result has been declared. If you clear prelims, you don't come to know your marks. You are just told that you have been invited for mains. After mains, if you clear it, you are invited for interview. You do not know your marks. Marks of pre aren't counted in the final list, final ranking. Mains and interview decide your final ranking. Mains is of 1750 marks, which are counted, and interview is of 275 marks for civil services prelims, which are counted. This is the general schedule. So let's start with prelims. How it happens, what is the procedure. Prelims has two papers, GS and CSAT, General Studies and Civil Services Aptitude Test. In General Studies, the topics are history, geography, history, economics, polity, and most important of all, current affairs. Along with that, environment and rights issues, etc. are there. CSAT has mainly three things: maths, English, and reasoning. English is the most difficult one, and maths and reasoning are also difficult, but relatively easier. This paper is becoming difficult every year. So many candidates are clearing GS paper but failing in CSAT paper. So their final result is that they have failed. The marks in prelims aren't counted for the final ranking, but marks of GS are counted for selection for mains. Let me explain how. In GS, the number of questions are 100. In CSAT, the number of questions are 80. Marks per question is 2. Here, marks per question is 2.5. So, total marks become 200. 100 multiply 2. Then 80 multiply by 2.5, again 200. So, total paper is of 400 marks. But there is negative marking. Negative marking is 1/3 of marks awarded to each question. So 1/3 of 2, that is 2 by 3. This is negative marking. So minus 2 by 3 means minus 0.67. Similarly here 1/3 of marks awarded to the question, which is 2.5. So approximately 0.8 or something. This is the negative marking. Some students have the confusion that negative marking is only 1/3 and not 2/3. It is actually 2 by 3. I once met a candidate who appeared in 1 or 2 prelims and he still thought that negative marking is only 1 by 3, that is minus 0.33. This is not so. The negative marking is minus 0.67. He started arguing with me, and when I tried to convince him that no, negative marking is 1/3 of the marks awarded to this question and marks awarded to the question are 2. So negative marking is actually minus 2 by 3 and minus 0.67. He didn't believe me. So this is the truth. You can check in the notification. Now, in case of prelims, these marks which you get out of 200 are selected. These are the ones which you have to obtain higher for selection for mains. In this paper, you need to get 33% of marks. 33% of 200 is 66.67, or simply you can say 67 marks is what you need. Even if you get 150, even if you get 200 out of 200, it doesn't matter. Once you get 66.67, you are clear, and it doesn't matter how much you actually score. If in this exam, if you don't secure this many marks, that is 67 marks approximately, you are failed, irrespective of how much you have scored in GS. In GS, even if you secure 150, but here you can't secure 67, you have failed. Now in this exam decides whether you will write mains or not. For general category, the cutoff is generally 100 to 110. It may fluctuate also. Last year it was 98. The last year prelims, which happened on 4th October, we will come to know its cutoff after the whole process is over. As I told you, the cutoffs and your marks are revealed after the whole process is over. After my interview will be conducted, after the final result would be there, 10-15 days later, we will come to know what was the cutoff, how many marks I secured, how many marks each of those candidates secured. So this is the prelims exam. In prelims exam, there is also another aspect. I told you that in civil services exam, there are 24 posts previously. Now 3 posts have been taken away, so 21 posts are there. For example, IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS. In case of prelims, this exam is common for 2 services. First is the civil services, in which you are get selected for 21 posts, and total approximately 800 posts are there. This number will keep on decreasing every year. In prelims, the selection also happens for IFOS, that is the Indian Forest Service exam. For Indian Forest Service exam, you need to appear in the same paper, and you get selected for both of them if you clear both of the cutoffs. Since in this paper number of seats are 800, so cutoff usually stays around 100 to 110, but in this paper generally seats are only 60 to 70, so cutoff is around 15 marks higher, so 115 to 120 etc. This could be the cutoff. So clearing this cutoff is much more difficult. Clearing this cutoff is relatively easier, but not easy actual in truth. This is in short the prelims exam. The time available for you to write this exam is 2 hours, and 2 hours in this one. So in these 2 hours you need to attempt more questions. In these 2 hours you need to attempt lesser number of questions. This happens on generally from 9:30 to 11:30. This happens from 2:30 to 4:30. Even if you attempt only one paper, let's say only GS paper or only CSAT paper, your attempt is counted. General category people get 6 attempts or 32 years of age, whichever is earlier. I told you about this. Suppose you reach late for GS and you aren't allowed entry. If you write CSAT paper, your attempt will be counted. Suppose you think that let's attempt at least CSAT so that I will get an idea for next year. You will be wasting your attempt. But if you are attempting, let's say if you are starting at 28, you are anyway not going to utilize all your 6 attempts because the age is 32. So if you reach late for GS, you can attempt CSAT. You don't need to care about your attempts. You are not going to use all your 6 attempts already. Even if you sit in this exam and get debarred because you are caught cheating in any one of them, your attempt will again be counted. This is in short the prelims exam. This happens on single day. This happens on Sunday. For example, initially it was 31st May 2020 last year, but now it was later conducted on 4th October. Both of them were Sunday. At 2 you get 3 hours in the 3-hour break from 11:30 to 2:30, in which you can get eat and get refreshed. This is in short the prelims exam. The prelims is common to both civil services and forest exam. After that these exams bifurcate, and mains and interview is different for this, and mains and interview is different for this. I told you that after prelims this mains is conducted 4 months later, and after this prelims this mains is conducted 6 months later. So 2 months later, that is you get 60 days to prepare for Indian Forest Service exam later. But because in this exam interview is to be conducted of a lot of candidates, I told you 2000 candidates are called approximately, assuming 800 vacancies. So these interviews continue for long and begin late. They both begin late and continue for long. For this interview, as seats are only 60, say 60 or 70, so approximately 2.5 times that number, 150 candidates are called. So assuming 50 candidates per day, you can finish it in 3 or 4 days. So these interviews commence early and finish in 3-4 days itself. These interviews may take 2 months. So in effect the paper is like this: prelims GS CSAT and prelims civil service, Indian forest service, 21 posts and Indian forest service. Then you give its mains, and if you are selected you appear in interview, then you give its mains, then you give its interview. The mains of this and mains of this are different. Interview of this and interview of this is generally the same, both happen for half an hour, but because you are appearing for different services, so the type of questions asked may be a little different. This may focus on forest, since this is the Indian Forest Service exam. This may have less focus on forest and could be more general. After prelims, let's move on to mains. The mains exam is a little more complicated because of subjective type paper. In mains exam, there is a question before you and empty space is given and you need to write your answers. In mains exam, this is called a subjective type paper. Prelims is objective type. Object means, for example, if there is a ball, it's a ball for me and it's a ball for you, so it's a ball for everyone, so the answer will be the same. For question number 1, if the correct option is A, you need to tick option A and option A only in order to secure positive marks. If you tick any other option or 2 options or 3 options or all 4 options, you will get negative marking. If you leave the question, you aren't getting any negative marking. This is the prelims paper. Mains is subjective. Subjective means that the answer could be different for everyone. The sheet is there for 10 marker question, let's say. So question is written here in English and Hindi. Then this empty space is given on the next sheet. For 10 marker questions, 2 sheets are given, and this is the space in which you can write. On the next page, question number 2 starts, so you can only write here and here for 10 marks questions. I'll tell you in detail how it happens. Subjective means, for example, in the English sentence, I go, I eat, I is the subject. Since when I am going, you may not be going. Since when I am eating, you may not be eating. So everyone could be doing different things at the same time. So this is the meaning of subjective, where every individual matters and your answer could be different from everyone. This is the meaning of subjective. So let's start with this exam. I told you 1750 marks are there for this, and for interview there are 275 marks. So total is 25 marks. Out of this, merit list is there. So mains exam has actually 9 papers, out of which 7 papers are counted for ranking. 7 papers have 750 marks, and 2 papers are qualifying, like the CSAT paper of prelims. You just need to secure some marks in this and you will pass. If you fail in this, you have definitely failed irrespective of your marks here. You need to pass these 2 papers. Like in CSAT you need to get 67 marks. Here you need to also get some marks. So let's start. What are these 9 papers? The 9 papers are GS 1, 2, 3, 4, then essay, then optional, then English paper, and then language paper. GS, as I told you, refers for general studies. Samanya Adhyan, that is in Hindi. In GS papers, these are the papers which are counted for ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and optional paper has 2 papers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 2, 7 papers are counted for ranking. Each one is of 250 marks. So 7 multiplied by 250 is equal to 1750. These are the marks that are counted for ranking. This is of 250, again 250, 250, 250. Single paper 250, optional paper, each paper 250. So optional paper has 2 papers. So this is of 500 marks. Essay has one paper, so this is of 250. This is of 1000 marks, and total becomes 1750. English and language papers are of 300 marks each. This is of 300. This is language paper. Language you can choose anyone. There is a list in the notification which I will tell you tomorrow. I chose Hindi because I am comfortable in it, and you can choose likewise. There are 22 languages in the 8th schedule of the constitution, so you can choose that any of those 22 languages. In this paper you need to get 25% to pass the exam, that is 75 marks. These papers aren't counted for ranking, so out of 300, even if you secure, let's say 150, 200 or 250, it doesn't matter. You just need 75 out of 300, and after that you would have passed the exam. So this is the basics about this exam. Let's start with in detail what this exam is about. Here, optional paper, you need to select one optional, of which two papers are there. For example, I selected anthropology as my optional, so the two papers were Anthro paper 1 and Anthro paper 2. Only one optional is to be selected. 5-10 years ago, two optionals were to be selected, but now only one optional is there. There is a list of 15 to 20 optionals in the notification, which I will tell you tomorrow. Let's start with the details of each exam, how this exam looks. In GS papers, 20 questions are generally asked in GS 1, 2, 3. We will see this right now in detail. In GS 4, there is a different pattern. In essay paper, you need to write 2 essays of 125 marks each, totaling 250. Each paper is of 3 hours. Every paper is of 3 hours. So this paper is of 3 hours. So you need to write an essay in approximately 1.5 hours, totaling 2 essays, 3 hours. Optional Anthro, again 3 hours. So total 9 papers are there, and you need to write for 3 hours. So total you need to write for 27 hours. Only 7 papers are there whose marks are counted. So you need to write for 21 hours. This paper happens on 5 days in 10 calendar days. That is 5 days. Break is there. There is a 5-day holiday in these mains exam. Let's see the details, how it is conducted. For example, I just told you that 4 months ago I wrote my mains from 8th to 17th January. So let's see how this exam is conducted. 8th January, 9th January, 10th January, 11 to 15, 16th January and 17th January. On every paper is of 3 hours. On 8th January there is only one paper, essay paper, from 9 to 12. After 12 you can go home. On 9th January there is GS1 and GS2 on single day. So this happens from 9 to 12, this happens from 2 to 5. On this day there is GS3 and 4. So again 9 to 12, 2 to 5. Here every paper is of 3 hours. In case of prelims, there was GS and CSAT, each was of 2 hours. In this paper, in the GS and CSAT of prelims, you are getting a 3-hour break in between. And in these papers, you are getting 2-hour break in between. From 11 to 15, you get holiday. This day is generally Friday. This day is generally Saturday. This day is generally Sunday. From Monday to Friday, you get a holiday. Then next Saturday, Sunday, you again have a paper. So except for Friday, you have this mains on weekends only. The reason is that on weekends, the schools in which the exam is conducted, they generally don't invite students and you can write the paper in peace. Also, this helps those who are working in various private sector jobs in appearing easily in this exam. Otherwise, if it would have been conducted, let's say from Monday to Friday, then they would have needed to tell their head that they need a holiday, and then it could be revealed that you are appearing in civil services, and then your boss may in the future not hire your boss may fire you, thinking that you aren't serious about this job and want something better. So these are the two primary reasons, I think, for which this exam is conducted. Now essay paper is there. GS 1, 2, 3, 4 is done. I told you there are 4 papers: GS 1 to 4, then essay, then optional, then English, then language. So GS 1 to 4 is done, essay is done. Now on Saturday there is English and language. Any language you may select. English is compulsory for everyone because it is the only all India language in which every state has some people who know this language. So this happens from 9 to 12 and 2 to 5. As I told you, this is the only paper, English to language, in which marks aren't counted. So this is the only day on which you write the exams for which marks aren't counted. It is 300 marks each, and you need 25%, that is 75 marks in each paper. On Sunday you get optional 1, optional 2. So for example, I had anthropology 1 and anthropology 2 from 9 to 12 and 2 to 5. This is the exam for which marks are counted, marks are counted, marks are counted, marks are counted. Total 4, 5, 2 papers here, 7 papers for which marks are counted. Each is of 1750 total. This exam is of 300 and this is of 300. This is not of 250 and 250. The rest 7 are of 250 marks. So this is the schedule. For example, when I gave my mains from 8th to 17th Jan. If you get a schedule in the future for your mains exam in which it says that the paper will start on some day which is a Friday, then you can easily guess that on Friday, when the timetable comes very late, just before the exam, let's say 2 weeks before the exam, you can easily guess that on Friday you will have your essay, then on Saturday, Sunday you will have your GS 1, 2, 3, 4, and there will be a 5-day break, and then you will have these 2 papers. So you can use these 5 days to prepare for this paper, the optional paper, for which marks are counted, so that you secure better. I don't need to study either for English or Hindi paper because my both English and Hindi are above average, but some students may need to focus on them also. And as I told you, if you can't secure 75 in this or both, you have failed, irrespective of your marks here. This is the mains paper. Now let's see what is asked in each of the paper, what is there in GS 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. GS 1, 2, 3, 4. I just told you that GS 1, 2, 3 is the same. GS 4 is different. Essay is completely different. 2 essays are there. 125 marks each. 3 hours total. So you can spend approximately 1.5 hours on each essay. But this time division is your own decision. You can give 2 hours on one essay, 1 hour on other, etc., etc. Anything is allowed. You just get 3 hours to write 2 essays. This is the GS 1, 2, 3, 4. Then optional paper. This is also completely different, and English and language papers are also different. So every paper is different from every other except for GS 1, 2, 3, who always look the same. So let's start with GS 1, 2, 3. How do these papers look? In GS 1, 2, 3, I told you that all the papers whose marks are counted are of 250 marks. So GS 1, 2, 3 is of 250 marks. This 250 division happens in 100 and 150 marks. 100 and 150, total 250. Here you get 10 marks and 10 questions. Here you get 15 marks and 10 questions. So total you get 20 questions and the total becomes 15 into 10 150, then 10 into 10 100, then total becomes 250 marks. For UPSC, one side of one paper denotes 5 marks. What does that mean? In this 10 marks paper, 5 marks is for one side of a paper. So for 10 marks you will be given two sides of a paper to write this exam. For example, suppose this is the exam paper which you receive on your GS 1, 2, 3 papers. So here there will be written instructions and you need to just write your roll number. Then when you will move forward, you will get the 10 marks questions. These are numbered question 1 to 10. These are numbered question 11 to 20. So here the 10 marks question will be there. It will be written in both English and Hindi. You can answer in the language you have chosen. I write in English. Most of the candidates write in English, and it is strongly suggested that you choose English. So the question will be here. It will be written in English and Hindi. Then there will be empty space here and empty space here. This side denotes 5 marks. One side of one paper denotes 5 marks. So you will get two sides there. Then you will get, when you will move on to the next one, you will get two second question here in English and Hindi. Then empty space, then empty space. 5 marks plus 5 marks. Second question is of 10 marks. Again, so on. Third question will be here. Then similarly will be the case for the 10 questions. Question number 10. When you will move to question number 11, which is of 15 marks, since 5 marks denote one side of one paper, you will get 3 sheets. So after, let's say, question number 10 here, question number 10 is written here in English and Hindi. Then you move on here. Then you will get question number 11 here. It will be written in English and Hindi. Empty space here, and empty space here. 5 marks, 5 marks and 5 marks. Total 15 marks. So in each of these papers, you will get 2 sheets or 2 sides of one paper per question. So total will be 10 questions. So you will get 20 sheets. In this, you will get 3 sheets per question. Total 10 questions are there. So you will get 30 sheets. In total, you will get 50 sheets of 50 sides of one paper, and which means total 25 pages. And 50 sides of one paper multiplied by 5 marks per side of paper becomes 250. This is how GS1 looks. This is again how GS2 looks. This is again how GS3 looks. This is not a hard and fast rule that 5 marks per side of paper will always be there. Sometimes, for example, in this year paper which I wrote in January 2021, 4-5 months ago, in one of these papers, the last 2 questions, question number 19 and question number 20 of, I think, GS3, there were 4 sheets given instead of 3 sheets, although the marks were the same, that is 15 marks. So this is not a hard and fast rule, but this is generally followed. All other 8 questions had 3 sheets only. This is how the mains of GS1, 2, 3 looks. As I told you, it happens on Saturday and Sunday. In the beginning, on Friday you have essay. Then on Saturday you have GS1 and GS2, 9 to 12 and 2 to 5. Then on Sunday you have GS3 and 4, 9 to 12 and 2 to 5. This is GS1, 2, 3. Each of the paper looks the same. There will be 10 questions in the beginning, then 10 questions later. These will be of 15 marks, these will be of 10 marks. This has been UPSC has made a lot of changes in the past. For example, it may happen that for 12.5 marks, you are asked 20 questions instead of this distribution. This again becomes 250 marks. So this could be what could be happening. You may get this kind of paper also, in which case you may get a different type of sheet. For example, you may get 3 sheets per page. In that case, you may get 60 sheets, different from 50 sheets. That is, you have to fill more sheets here, which means there is more probability of you leaving this exam not able to attempt all the questions, leaving 1 or 2 questions. So UPSC generally doesn't follow this anymore. This is now the standard in which a candidate is expected to fill 50 sheets in 3 hours. This is much more doable than those 60 sheets in 3 hours, in which there is a higher probability of you leaving the last questions. This is GS 1, 2, 3. Let's move on to GS 4. GS 4 is a little different. GS 1, 2, 3, 4. In case of GS 1, the syllabus is history, geography along with social issues. In GS 2, constitution and polity is there along with international relations. In GS 3, economics, disaster management, science and tech, etc. is asked. The GS 4 exam is a new exam which has been inducted only in the past 5-6 years, 7-8 years. Its name is Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude. This is the name of the exam, or in simple it is called ethics exam. The distribution is generally like this. 250 marks are divided this way, 130 marks and 120 marks. In this you get 13 questions of 10 marks each. In here you get 20 marks and only 6 questions. Here is 13. This is questions. 13 questions of 10 marks each, 6 questions of 20 marks each. Let's write it this way. 6 questions of 20 marks each. These are referred to as case studies. Case studies means a case is given, you are the DM, this has happened, a flood has happened, what would you do? You are the secretary and people are migrating in Corona. This was a case study in this year in which I wrote the exam. For example, GS4 happens on, I told you, Sunday 2 to 5. So on 10th of January from 2 to 5 when I wrote this exam. Okay, one of the case study of these 6 case studies are asked. One of the case study was about migration during coronavirus and what would you do. So any situation is given and your thinking is checked. In case of these exam, this section, in this case the theoretical knowledge of your ethics, integrity and aptitude is checked. Here although 13 questions are there, but they are not numbered question 1 to 13. Question 1 has A, B, etc. Question 2 may have A, B, C. Question 3, question 4, 5, 6. Generally this is the case. This is of 10 marks, this is of 10 marks, 10, 10, 10 and so on. A, B, C, A, B, A, B, C and so on. So 13 questions end in approximately question number 1 to 6. Question number 1 to 6. All 13 questions are done, each having A, B, C parts. So this generally starts from question number 7 and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So question number 12, this ends. These become your 6 questions, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I told you that for UPSC, 5 marks is denoted by one side of a paper. One side of one paper. So here you get 10 marks. So you get 2 sheets. you get 2 sheets per question and you need to write 13 questions, so you write 26 sheets here. Here you get 20 marks and you have 5 marks per side of paper, so you get 6 questions multiplied by 4 sheets per question. This becomes 24 sheets. Total again becomes 50 sheets, just like the GS paper, and 50 multiplied by 5 is 250, just like the GS papers. So number of sheets to be filled are the same, the distribution matters. So this paper, how would this paper look when it comes in your hand? For example, this is your ethics paper which comes in your hand on Sunday in the afternoon session from 2 to 5. So in this paper there will be instructions and you just need to write your roll number. Prelims, mains, interview. Prelims is to be attempted using black ballpoint pen only. It must be black, it must be ballpoint. Gel pen won't work, blue pen won't work. In mains you can write using any pen, either blue or black. Generally no third color is allowed because you don't know which color pen the examiner will be using. So if the examiner is using red pen and you have yourself used red pen in your answers, there will be some confusion and your marks may be deducted. So blue or black is recommended. Most people write with blue pen. And generally gel pens and better quality, higher quality, expensive pens are recommended. For example, Pilot pens. And interview is oral, so no pen is required. So in this case, when the paper comes in your hand, there will be first question. Since it is of 10 marks, you get 2 sheets. So here and here you need to write. After this, you move on second question, then third, and so on. After the 13th question, that is which is actually question number 1 to 6, I showed you. So after the 6th question A, let's say 6th A is here, 7th A is, 6th B is here, 6th C is here. After that, when you move on, you will get the first question, maybe 7th or 8th, depending on how this distribution is there. So if question number 7 is of 20 marks, you will get 4 sheets. This, and then again this will be what you will getting. Case studies are generally lengthy. Just like GS, every question comes in both English and Hindi translation. So when you will start first A, first B, every question will be written here in English and Hindi. Then so on. And 120 marks for case study. Generally it is long. Let's say after 6th, 7th question, case study starts here. So case study may take up this much page or the whole page, or it may even move on to the next page. So you need to read it and understand it. It is given in both English and Hindi. If you don't understand something in English, you can always read its Hindi. And then you get 4 pages. So since one of the page may be occupied by your case study itself, or at least half the page, the amount of writing you may have to do is reduced. You don't write as much as you have to do here. Here the question is of 1 or 2 lines only and it finishes it here itself. So you have 2 complete pages. Here, since the case study itself is taking 1 page, so you need to write in only next 3 pages and you get 20 marks. This paper, because of this fact, may look easy to complete, but it is actually the most difficult one. Case studies, in order to understand a case study, the demand of the case study and what you need to write, it takes up a lot of time. These questions are relatively easier and direct. You just need read the question. If you know it, you write it. If you don't know, either you may write what you know and what is relevant and what is asked, or you may completely leave the question, in which case you will get 0 marks. This is the GS4 paper. This is the GS4 paper, that is the ethics paper, ethics, integrity and aptitude. Let's move on to essay. Essay paper, again 250 marks. Two essays are there, 125 marks and 125 marks. Since for UPSC one side denotes one side of paper denotes 5 marks, so here you get 25 sheets multiplied by 5 marks per sheet. This becomes 125 marks, and again here 25 sheets are there. So 25 sheets means approximately 12.5 pages. So here what happens is, there is question number 1, this is question number 2. In question number 1 you get 4 choices. You can write on either one. You can choose this one or this one or this one. You cannot write 2 essays here. Total 2 essays are to be written, one from this, one from this. Here again there are 4 choices and you can choose either one to write. You should choose the one in which you are the most comfortable. Every paper has word limit. So in GS 123, there were 10 marks questions and 15 marks questions. The 10 marks question has 150 words as word limit. Here it is 250 words is word limit. This is the upper limit and not the one which you have to reach. Most of the people never reach this. You can't reach this in 3 hours. It's too lengthy. So here you can write 100 words and here you can write 200 words, and that is generally enough. In GS 4, that is ethics, there are 10 marker questions and 20 marker case studies as I just showed you. Here the word limit is again 150 words, and here the word limit is generally the same, 250 words. Sometimes it may be written 300 words. This is because one of the sheet has been written by occupied by the question itself, by the case study itself. So you get 3 sheets just like here. So in here the word limit is generally the same. In this exam, in essay, the word limit is 1000 to 1200 words, and same is here, 1000 to 1200 words. You have to write 2 essays and you must choose single essay from here and single essay from here. You can't do this that you choose these 2 essays and reject all other. No, from this only one essay is to be written. From this only one essay is to be written. So how will this paper look? In this paper, instructions, you write your roll number. Then when you move on, here will be written question number 1, then A, B, C, D, 4 options, 4 lines are given on which you need to write your answer. For example, the 4 lines could be: unity is strength, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, India's boundary disputes, or our international relations. So out of these 4 topics you can choose either one, and then empty sheets are there, 25 sheets are there. So you keep on writing for a lot of sheets. You have to write 1000 to 1200 words in these 25 sheets, and then after 25 sheets there is the second question, question number 2. Here again A, B, C, D, 4 essay topics are there. You can choose either one, and again for the next 25 sheets you need to write the exam. This is how this exam question paper generally looks like. It is strongly recommended that you see these papers as it came from 8th to 17th January 2021, so that you get an idea of how these papers look. So let's move on to optional paper. As I told you, optional has 2 papers, paper 1 and paper 2. There is a list of long optionals which you can select. For example, in my case I chose anthropology, so my paper were anthropology paper 1 and anthropology paper 2. In this you can choose from a list of optionals, for example anthropology, medical science, maths, botany, zoology, statistics and so on. You can choose literature papers also of various languages. The language paper is different. There is an, as I told you, English and language paper. This language paper is different from this optional literature list. Let's start with this paper. Both the papers look the same, so I will be discussing only one paper. Let's say paper 1. So in this paper you have two sections, section A, section B. How is this exam conducted? In section A you have question number 1, then there are 5 questions A, B, C, D, E. Here is question number Question number 5, A, B, C, D, E. Then question number 6, A, B, C. Question number 7, A, B, C. Question number 8, A, B, C. So now each question is of 50 marks. The paper 1 is of 250 marks. Paper 2 is of 250 marks. So your optional is of 500 marks. Every question is of 50 marks. So this one is of 50 marks. So this one is of 10 marks each. And this so on, 10 marks each. 50 marks for this. 50 for this. 50 for this. 50 for this. And same goes here. So the total question paper is of 400 marks. 200 here and 200 here. Out of those 400 marks, you need to attempt 250 marks. So in this paper, choice is given. In GS 1, 2, 3, 4, I told you every question is compulsory. You don't have a choice. In essay paper, this is English and language. In essay paper, you get a choice in the first essay, question number 1 and question number 2. You get 4 options and you can write on either one. In question number 2, you have 4 lines and you can write down essay on either one. So essay paper has choice and this paper has choice. General studies papers don't have any choice. Every question is compulsory. So here you have 400 marks of questions. Then how is this distribution happen? Question number 1 and question number 5. This question is compulsory for everyone. You must attempt these questions. The marks are counted. If you leave them, you are losing 50 marks, or if you leave both the questions, you lose 100 marks. So the first question of each section, question number 1 is the first question of section A, question number 5 is the first question of section B. So first question of each section is compulsory. Question number 1 is compulsory, question number 5 is compulsory. This gives you 100 marks. Total is of 250 marks. 100 marks you have secured, 50 here, 50 here. So now 150 marks remains. So now each question is of 50 marks. So you can choose any 3 questions to get 150 marks. But there is a condition attached here. The condition is that you cannot choose all the 3 questions which you have to choose from one section. You cannot choose question number 2, 3, 4, or you cannot choose question number 6, 7, 8. That is, you cannot write question 2, 3, 4, A, B, C. This A, B, C is something like this: 20, 15, 15, again 20, 15, 15. So total becomes 50 marks. Here again 50 marks, here 50, again 50, 50, 50, 20, 15, 15. So this is how the distribution happens. You cannot choose those 3 questions from a single section. You cannot choose 2, 3, 4 to write and leave 6, 7, 8. And you cannot choose question number 6, 7, 8 to write and leave question number 2, 3, 4. Let's say if you do that, if you write only question number 2, 3, 4 and you don't write question number 6, 7, 8, in that case your question number 2 and 3 will be checked, question number 4 won't be checked, and you will lose 50 marks. In question number, so the permutation, apart from this condition, any other permutation and combination is allowed. You need to choose 3 questions. So you can do what you can do, question number 2 and 3, and then question number 8, or question number 3 and 4, question number 6, question number 7 and 8, question number 3, and so on. Any 2 questions from here, or and then 1 question from here, or any 1 question from here, or any 2 questions from here. 6 and 8, and then question number 3, 7, and then 2 and 3. Anything is allowed. You cannot choose the 3 questions from single section. So the instructions written on the first page of this paper will say, first question of every section is compulsory. Question number 1 and question 5 are hence compulsory. And from the rest of the questions, you have to attempt 3 questions, choosing at least 1 from each section. So at least 1 question from each section is to be chosen. That is, you cannot write all the 3 questions from single section. How does this paper look? Question number first, A, B, C, D. This is of 10 marks. So 2 sheets are given. So this is question 1A. This is question 1B, question 1C, question 1D, question 1E, and so on. This gives you 50 marks. Then you move on to question number 2. It has 3 parts, A, B, C. Each of these has A, B, C. This is of 20 marks. This is of 15 marks. This is of 15 marks. So in this paper, since it is of 20 marks and 5 marks are denoted by one side of one paper, so you get 2 sheets here and 4 sheets here. So question number second A will be printed here. Then 1 sheet, 2 sides, third side and fourth side. 4 will be there. Then on question number second of B, there will be 15 marks. So 1, 2 and third side will be there. Here will be written question number second C. Then again 3 sheets will be given. This is how your paper looks. Then again you keep jumping forward. After question number 3 and 4 in section B, again the same thing is repeated. Since essay and optional papers have choice, so in the beginning when the paper comes in your hand, both of essay and optional, you need to choose which essay you are going to attempt. From question number 1, from 4 essays, which essay you will write. From question number 2, from 4 essays, which essay you will write. From optional paper also, you have to choose between from these 6 questions, which 3 questions you will write. So some of the time gets consumed in this choosing in the optional paper as well as in the essay paper. So effectively you may get lesser time to write. But since the paper is of 250 marks and 5 marks denotes one side of one sheet, so you still need to fill 50 sheets. You can calculate it here. For example, this is 10 marks, so these are 2 sheets. These are 5 questions of 2 sheets, so these denote 10 sheets. So if a single question denotes 10 sheets, in the 5 questions you will choose denote 50 sheets. For example, here you get 20 marks, so 4 sheets, 15 marks, 3 sheets, then 15 marks, 3 sheets. So 10 sheets per question. You need to attempt 5 questions, 1 and 2, these are compulsory. Then any 3 from here, any 3, 4 and 5. So total becomes 50 sheets. And you have to choose in the beginning also. In GS paper there is no choice, you have to start writing. So you don't lose time in choosing in this paper, some time is wasted, but still 50 sheets are to be filled, so lesser time is relatively available. This is the optional paper. Let's move on to English and language paper. This English and language paper I told you is simply qualifying. Your English is checked, then your language which you have chosen is checked. If you know decent amount of that language. Both the papers look the same, so I will discuss only one. English paper is of 250 marks, 300 marks. These papers are of 300 marks. The rest of the papers were of 250 marks. So in English you get 300 marks. Out of this, first question is again an essay. 4 choices are given and you need to write an essay on either one. This is of 100 marks. Since every paper is of 3 hours, so you should spend at least 1 hour writing this. 100 marks for 1 hour, 300 marks for 3 hours. And after that you have to write a précis. Précis means a summary. Paragraph is written maybe of 600 words. Then you have to write the summary in 1/3 words or 200 words and so on. Then you may have to write a letter. Then you may have to write tell about active, passive, direct, indirect speech, idioms and phrases, etc. This is the English paper. You may also have to translate a paragraph from English to any other language which you know, and in case of a language written in the paper, you may have to translate that to English. For example, Hindi passage could be there, then you have to translate Hindi to English, and English passage could be there, you may have to translate it from English to Hindi. Then there is the language paper. For example, I chose Hindi, so first question will be of essay, that is Nibandh in Hindi. Essay is known as Nibandh in Hindi. So 4 topics will be there in Hindi. I have to write for 100 marks and I have to write for approximately 1 hour. Then the same thing goes on. And these two are your English and language paper. This finishes your mains paper. This paper, English and language qualifying papers, happen on Saturday, as I told you. So my English and language paper was on 16th January. On 17th January there was optional, and then the mains exam was finished. This in short is the mains exam. Let's move on to interview. UPSC doesn't call interview as interview, it calls it as personality test. Personality means what you do when everyone is looking. Character means what you do when no one is looking. This is the simple definition, I may say. This is a very crude definition. So UPSC wants to test your personality. This is generally not a test of knowledge. Knowledge has been tested in prelims and mains. UPSC wants to see how a candidate thinks, if you are honest, etc., etc. So how does interview begin? I told you that 5 lakh people write prelims, 10 lakh fill the form, 5 lakh write prelims, 10,000 are selected to write mains, assuming 800 vacancies are there. Like this year for me, there are approximately 836 vacancies. So 10,000 candidates wrote mains. Out of those 2,000 are called for interview and 800 are to be selected. So let's see how this proceeds. From these 2,000 candidates, 800 are to be selected and 1,200 are rejected. The interview happens for 2 months. I told you that UPSC calls approximately 50 persons every day. So 40 days interviews may begin. 40 days means 1 month and 10 days. But UPSC only works from Monday to Friday. So this means 8 weeks, which means approximately 2 months. So for example, this year in my interview, 2047 candidates have been called, and they were called from 26th or 27th April to 18th June 2021, and I was called on 4th June 2021. But now everything has been postponed because of COVID. So this is approximately 2 months time. All of May, half of June, and then some part from April. So you get called on one day off from these 2 months. On that one day, there are 2 sessions, forenoon and afternoon. This is simply called as morning session or evening session by the candidates. Noon means 12 o'clock when the sun is the highest in the sky. So forenoon means before 12, afternoon means after 12. So in this case your interviews may begin from 10 to 12. You have to reach UPSC by 9 o'clock, I think. When I gave my interview in 2019, I was called in the forenoon session, and this year I was called on 4th June in the afternoon session. So this is generally the case, and after this 1 hour break is given to UPSC members to eat, and the candidates are required to reach UPSC by 12 o'clock, and interviews may begin from 1 p.m. Generally this is the case. So I was called in the afternoon session, so on 4th of June I would have reached at 12 o'clock midday, and my interview could have begun at any time. Now, how does UPSC as a body look like? UPSC is a constitutional body, which means that its creation is mentioned in the constitution and is not subject to the whims and fancies of the central government. UPSC has to be there. It is created by Article 315 of the Constitution. This makes it a constitutional body. So UPSC generally has one chairperson along with 10 members. The number of members may keep on fluctuating. There could be 8 or 9 members depending on how many have retired, how many have resigned, etc., etc. And generally 10 members or near about is there. The chairperson does not take interviews. These 10 members of UPSC take your interview. So on the day of your interview, when your turn comes, the table on which 5 people take your interview one by one. So those 5 people could be sitting on a rectangular table or a circular table, as the case may be. And one by one they ask the interview. The central person is always the chairperson of your board. For example, in my interview in 2019, Mr. B.S. Bassi ji was my chairperson of my interview board. He was a member of UPSC and not the chairperson of UPSC. He was the chairperson of my interview board. Chairperson does not conduct interview. 10 members conduct interview. 1 member is sitting in your interview panel. Other members aren't sitting. They form their different interview boards. So if all the 10 members form an interview panel, there could be 10 boards. Never will it happen that in your interview panel 2 persons are members of UPSC. No, only 1 person is the member of your UPSC. That person becomes the chairperson of your board. This is the person who begins the interview and directs the interview, conducts the interview, and finally tells you to leave. This is the chair where you sit. This is the door from where you enter. You knock on the door and then ask, may I come in? And generally they say, yes, you may come in. So you come here, you stand here, and then you wish the chairperson first, then the lady member or lady members first, and then the rest of the members. For example, I said, good morning sir. Then a ma'am was sitting here, so I said, good morning ma'am, and then good morning sirs, because these 3 were male. After that, the chairperson generally tells you to sit, and so the Mr. B.S. Bassi ji pointed at the chair and said, please sit. So I sat down, and then I thanked the chairperson of my board, that is Mr. B.S. Bassi ji, thank you sir. And then the interview proceeds. Generally the interview continues for 30 minutes and the time may vary. Some candidates it may be only for 10 minutes, for others it may be 40 or 50 minutes also. but generally 30 minutes is the time in which they are able to check all of your qualities and shortcomings. Generally these people whose interview is of 10 minutes don't get very high marks, but sometimes, for example, let's say there is a candidate who has filled IPS as first choice, then for these people interview is generally short and they get very high marks. The reason is that the interview panel believes, and rightly so, that a person who wants to join the IPS only and doesn't want IAS will do a lot of good things in the IPS, because for in the IPS most of the people are those who couldn't clear the cutoff for IAS and land in the IPS. So they are almost never happy with their job, but this person wants the uniform, wants to feel the power and prestige of a police officer, of a senior police officer. So this person will do a lot of good things, and so these people, their interview may last for short time. It may also continue for 30 minutes also, but generally such people are awarded high marks. So if you fill IFS also, there is a probability. This is not the guarantee. This is just the probability. If you have filled IPS as your first choice, but you say something completely ridiculous in your interview, you may get very low marks also. So generally interview is of 30 marks. So generally interview proceeds like this. First, the chairperson asks you questions for 5 minutes. Then this chairperson points a finger at another member, and then that member may start the interview. For example, if this side, from this side the interview may proceed, then this person asks you for 5 minutes, then this person may ask you for 5 minutes, then this person may ask you for 5 minutes. This becomes 25 minutes because 5 members asked you for 5 minutes. After the 5 members are done, let's say this was the last member, the chairperson again asks you for 5 minutes, totaling 30 minutes of your interview, and then your interview is over. For example, Mr. B.S. Bassi sir asked me questions in the last 5 minutes and then said to me, thank you Piyush, your interview is over. So after that I thanked all the members. I said thank you sir, thank you ma'am, thank you sirs, and then I left the room. After that some deliberation goes on as to how was the interview, what kind of marks should be awarded. Some candidates have the misconception that personality test is merely the test of personality and knowledge is not checked. But if you don't answer the questions, or let's say question is asked on history or geography or from your optional, but if you don't answer the questions, marks could be deducted, because you ought to know something about what you claim to be. I claim to have read anthropology as my optional, so I should know something, and if they ask me, I should be able to answer. So this is not merely a test of personality. Knowledge also matters, but personality matters more. So this is how your interview happens. On the next day, generally, if you are, let's say my interview was on 4th June 2021, now postponed. So on the next day, medical is there. On 5th June 2021, my medical would have been there. Let's shift on to medical. Medical exam takes whole day. Medical exam, for prelims exam, 10 lakh people fill the form, 5 lakh appear. So lot of centers are there all over India. In mains exam, 10,000 people appear. So lesser number of centers are there. Interview is only conducted in UPSC building in New Delhi. So whether you are from Mizoram or Kerala or Andaman or Nicobar Islands, you have to come to UPSC building, New Delhi. At no other place interview can be conducted. So on the next day from interview, you have medical. The various services available through this exam. For example, from 24 to 21 now, like IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS, IAAS, etc. These 21 services, they are divided in two types of services. One is technical, other is non-technical. The technical services mean that for this special requirements are there, and if you don't fulfill those requirements, you cannot become the member of those services which are technical services. For this, no such requirement is there. As long as you are fine, you can become a member. What are those special requirements and what are those services? Here are services. The services are generally the police services. For example, IPS, DANIPS, PONDIPS, then IRTS, railway service. This is one of the three services which has been removed from this exam. So these are the police services. I'll tell you later what is this. This is the Indian Police Service. This is Delhi Andaman Nicobar Police Service. This is Pondicherry Police Service. For police services, requirements are different for men and women. For example, for men, 165 centimeter height is required. 84 centimeter, I think you can check in the notification. 84 centimeter chest is required. Then 89 centimeter your chest should expand. So 5 centimeter chest expansion is required. You shouldn't be color blind. The people generally who are color blind are generally red green color blind. They could be fully color blind also. The people who are red green color blind can't see red or green color. So when they see red color, it will look like to them as if when you see a black and white TV. So they will look both. It will look like grey color to them. Both red color ball and green color grass will look grey to them. So colorblind people can't become IPS. Apart from that, you shouldn't be flat foot also. Flat foot means most of us, our feet look like this. There is a foot arch here. Foot arch is here. If your feet looks like this, if you walk in water and you leave an impression on the ground, if your foot looks like this, then you are flat foot and you cannot become a member of these services. For these people who have well developed foot arch, they aren't flat foot, they can become member of IPS. Then again there is a problem that hernia shouldn't be there. Hernia means in case of males, testicles may droop, testicles may go down, and if your testicles have drooped, you cannot become a member of these services. In these medical, the interview happens only in UPSC building, but medical is conducted on 6-7 different hospitals in New Delhi only, or more accurately in Delhi only. These generally happen on the next day. So you have anyway come all the way to Delhi for your interview, so you can appear on the medical for next day in Delhi. It's not a problem. 6-7 hospitals are there. Depending on the hospital, you may be checked. For example, for hernia, generally the regular procedure is that you are made nude. You need to remove some of your clothes, and then it is checked if whether your testicles have drooped or not. The other process is that you are told to cuff. You have to cuff like this. If you can't cuff, that means you may have hernia, and in that case you don't need to be made partly nude. And this is generally the process. The medical takes full day. So after the interview date, when you go to UPSC, you get a form which tells you where your medical will be there. So when you go there, out of those 6-7 hospitals, you get one hospital. In this technical post, there is another requirement about eyesight. Your eyesight should be from +6 diopters to -6 diopters. For example, right now the specs I am wearing is of -4 diopters. So I am within this range. I can become a member of IPS. And if your eyesight is outside this range, let's say it is -7 diopter or -7 diopter, +7 or -7, you can become a member, but a special ophthalmic board, ophthalmic means eyes, a special ophthalmic board checks you and gives you whether you should be permitted to become a member of the technical services or not. For rest of the services, eyesight is generally not an issue. These are the technical services, the police ones. The rest of the services, IAS, IFS, IRS, IAAS, etc. are non-technical, and you can easily become a member irrespective of suffering from any of these problems. The IPS is here, technical. IPS isn't here. IPS is technical. So the medical happens on one of the 6-7 hospitals. The medical, you have to go without eating anything. You have to have fasted, and then your blood test is there, after which you can eat. Blood test is the first step. After that, urine test is there, chest x-ray is there, then this hernia test is there, then flat foot is tested, then blood pressure is tested, and so on. And after that, by 5 or 6 p.m. you are free to go. If for example, in one of the cases I met a candidate whose chest x-ray showed some lumps, so the doctor said you have TB. The candidate said no, I don't have TB. In that case, if the doctor writes that you have some problem, you get 6 months to again appear in the medical, and after those 6 months, if your chest is clear, the doctor tells you that you can become a member. Otherwise, you cannot become a member. You are rejected. So it's not that you are finally rejected. You can be given an opportunity to correct your problem. It is not that for technical services there are requirements and for non-technical there is no requirement. Some requirements are there. Everything is detailed. Everything is in detail in the notification. You can download the notification by writing on the internet UPSC notification 2020, UPSC notification 2021, etc., etc. So this is how generally it happens. For example, one of the condition is that one of the condition is of organ transplant. If you have ever donated an organ or if you have ever received an organ from any other person, you cannot become a member of any service. So now let's start. This is the detail about the medical. I have told you about prelims, mains, interview, and then medical on the next day. Interview is conducted from Monday to Friday in the UPSC building. So medical happens on next day. So medical can happen from Tuesday to Saturday. This is in short how this exam takes place. As you can see, this whole process takes 1 year. The prelims form comes in Feb, March, then prelims happens in June, then mains happens in August, September, or September, October, any 5 days, either only in September or at the end of September and the beginning of October, any 5-10 days could be there. After that, the interviews happen in the next year in Feb, March, April, and then the result comes in May, etc. Whenever the last candidate is interviewed, the result comes within 1 week from that time. So today let's start with some small Let's start with the notification and what are all the details in the notification. This is the first page of the notification, and on this note page the services which are selected through this exam are written. So let me give you a brief introduction about all these services. Let's start. This is the IAS. Everyone knows a little bit about IAS. If you are selected in the IAS, you get posted as SDM, then you become ADM or ADC, then you become DM or DC. This is subdivisional magistrate. This is additional divisional magistrate, additional district magistrate, additional district collector, etc. And this is district magistrate or DM or DC, deputy collector, district collector, or deputy commissioner or district commissioner, etc. For the layman, for most people, IS starts and ends with being SDM and DM, but this is actually the beginning post only. The real power comes later. As SDM and DM, you only implement the policy. When you become the senior, you start formulating policies, so you can actually start bringing change. IAS can be posted in both center and state. For IPS, IAS and IPS, there is a state system which is known as cadre system or cadre system. Cadre simply means state in which you get posted. So let's say a person is posted as IAS in UP. So in that state, that person will start as SDM, then ADM, then DM. Then that person may become additional joint secretary, additional principal secretary, joint secretary. Then the highest post that can be held by an IAS in a state is the chief secretary. The chief secretary works with the chief minister. So in the state in which you are posted, you will work with the CM if you become chief secretary. If the CM and other ministers want anything accomplished, they will tell you, they will order you to do it, and then you will order the IAS and the IPS to do it. So for example, if you are posted in UP, then Mr. Yogi Adityanath will tell you what to do and what not to do. This is how the person works in a state. Assuming you are selected for a service for 30 years and you work for 60 years, in that case 60 years is the retirement age for all of these services. So you get 30 years of time period for which you serve. So in this 30 years you have to serve approximately 20 years in a state, and then you can choose to serve in the center for 10 years. In the central government there are 50 ministries, 50 or so ministries, 49, 50 or 51 maybe. In those ministries there are again these people: additional joint secretary, principal secretary, joint secretary, secretary. Secretary is the head of a ministry, and the highest post which you can hold is the cabinet secretary. This is the highest post which can be held by an IAS. There is only one IAS who is the cabinet secretary at any time. This person works with the Prime Minister and other ministers, for example Mr. Modi ji and Mr. Amit Shah ji. So if they want anything accomplished, they will tell this person to get it done, and then this person will order the IAS and the IPS etc. or other people to do it. If you are serving in a state as an IAS, you can go on deputation to the center. When a person goes to the center, it is known as deputation. Deputation means that when your work is done, you will again come back to the state. Many people apply for the central posts, only some of them get it, so you may be rejected also. This is the general work profile of an IAS. If there is ever made any commission or a grouping in which many persons from these services are members, generally IAS becomes the head. As you know, these persons get the highest amount of power, prestige, the job is challenging, there is variety, house and car is also great. So for these reasons, most people fill it at the first position. Then comes the IPS. IPS generally serve in a state. They generally don't serve in the center. In the state, you start as an SP or ACP, DSP or ACP, which you can later become SP or CP. DSP means Deputy Superintendent of Police. ACP means Assistant Commissioner of Police. If the district in which you are posted has commissionerate system, there is a system known as commissionerate system. If the district in which you are posted has this system, then you will called as Assistant Commissioner of Police because of commissionerate system. Then you will become Commissioner of Police because of the commissionerate system. Otherwise, you will be known as DSP in your subdivision below the district, and then there is an SP of every district, Superintendent of Police, Deputy Superintendent of Police. The difference is that in case of commissionerate system, the IAS above you, who will be the DM. In case of ACP, the IAS above him will be DM. In case of Commissioner of Police, the IAS above him will be the DM. Here it will be SDM. So in this case, the SDM or the DM above you won't have police powers, so you have more power. So simply understand that if the head of a district is known as commissioner, that person has more power. That's all. I'll tell you later in detail what are the places where commissionerate system is there. For example, Maharashtra has a lot of districts in which commissionerate system is there. I think 10 districts in Maharashtra have commissionerate system. Similarly, Tamil Nadu has 10 districts where commissionerate system is there. And my state Haryana has, I think, 3 districts, and so on. This is what you become in the beginning. Then you may become Deputy Inspector General, Inspector General. The highest post that an IPS can hold is known as DGP of the state. They generally don't go to the center. IS becomes Secretary, Joint Secretary, Additional Principal Secretary, etc. in the center. And in the center government, if some of them go, they are required to be the Director General of BSF, Director General of CRPF, Director General of CISF, and these posts are declared to be equivalent to DGP. That is, this person will get, the Director General will get the same power as, same salary, pension, etc. like this one. BSF means Border Security Force, CRPF means Central Reserve Police Force, CISF means Central Industrial Security Force, and there are other security forces also, for example CBI, NIA, Intelligence Bureau, RAW, etc. So this is the general work profile of an IPS. In case of IFS, you get posted in the foreign, this is the Indian Foreign Service, you get posted in the foreign embassies and consulates of India. Foreign embassies and consulates. You report
you read the newspapers there, you read the media, the electronic media also, and you report what that country said about India, what they have reported about India, what India has reported about them, etc. And equivalent information you give to Indian government. And generally you have to serve in a foreign nation, and out of 30 years, if you want, you can stay in 15 years maximum in India, but at least 15 years have to be spent outside India. In case of IRS, this is the Indian Revenue Service. This is income tax, not information technology. This is customs. Indian Revenue Service people collect revenue, and they also raid the people who they think are holding money and are not paying the due amount of tax or aren't paying any tax. Income tax is the direct tax and customs is the indirect tax, and now GST has come, which is again an indirect tax. When we will study economics, I'll tell you what is direct and indirect tax. These people are posted as Assistant Commissioner of Income Tax and Assistant Commissioner of Customs, etc. Later they may become Commissioner, Chief Commissioner, Principal Commissioner, and etc. etc. The highest post they can hold is, I think, the head of CBDT, CBEC, etc. Central Board of Direct Taxes for this direct tax IT people, Central Board of Excise and Customs for these customs people. These IS people become secretary in various ministries. For IPS, Cadre Controlling Authority is MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs. Cadre Controlling Authority means they decide the general work profile. They have the power to remove you from your service and so on. So these people work under the Home Minister. For example, currently Mr. Amit Shah. In IFS, you work under Ministry of External Affairs. In all these ministries, the secretary is generally an IAS, so you work under them. In IFS and in Indian Postal Service, the secretary comes from their own service. So in Ministry of External Affairs, the secretary won't be of IAS, secretary will be an IFS. In this case, the secretary will be again from postal only. So in IRS, you work under Ministry of Finance, Department of Revenue, because your job is mainly earning revenue for the government. It is Indian Revenue Service. So in here, your head is again an IAS, who is the secretary in the ministry. So you work under an IAS, and that's why IAS has huge amount of power. Let's move on to the next one. This is the IAAS. IAAS is the Indian Audit and Account Service. They prepare account of the central state government and they audit the account of the central government. I think this is their job. In case of IAAS, they work under CAG. CAG is the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. This is again a constitutional body, just like UPSC. UPSC has been created by Article 315. This has been created by Article 148 of the Constitution. It is a completely independent body. No politician can tell this person, this office, what to do and what not to do. So this service has no political interference. Neither the Prime Minister nor any Chief Minister or any other minister can tell you anything what to do or not to do. So you work under the CAG. The CAG also generally comes from the IAS, and the highest post you can hold is Deputy CAG. This is a very short in brief what these services are all about. IPTAFS is Indian Post and Telegraph Account and Finance Service. You prepare Post and Telegraph Account and Finance of Post and Telegraph Department. You work under the Department of Posts, under Ministry of Communications, I think. IDAS is Indian Defence Account Service. Indian Defence Account Service people prepare the defense accounts of all the three defense sector forces, that is the Army, Air Force, Navy, and I think Coast Guard is also under Defense Ministry, I am not sure. So these people prepare the defense accounts. Indian Ordnance Factory Services. Ordnance means Gola Barud, that is the ammunition, the bombs and all that stuff which these people make in the various ordnance factories located all over India. If you like nature, you can join this service. In this service, since you need to make ammunition which could be dangerous for the public, which if it explodes, it can be dangerous and may kill a lot of people. So these ordnance factories are located away from residential areas and deep in the jungle, etc. So if you love nature, you can join this service. You can you can fill it in the beginning. Indian Postal Service. The Postal Department, the Department of Post, various post office come under these people. India has 1.5 lakh post offices and 4 lakh people work under in these post offices, which is the largest network in the world. Even China is behind us. So all these 4 lakh personnel are handled by these postal officers. So this job is also challenging. Indian Civil Account Service, they prepare the civil account of the central government, not the state governments. The defense accounts are prepared by IDAS, and the railway accounts are prepared by Railway Account Service. So apart from defense and railway, all other accounts are prepared by Indian Civil Account Service. Let's say 50 ministries are there, so one ministry will be Ministry of Railways, one will be Ministry of Defense. So 48 ministries, their accounts are prepared by these people. Those accounts will be audited by Indian Audit and Account Service. They audit the accounts of the center. In this service, you mostly live in Delhi, so those who are from Delhi or nearby areas can fill it at the top, in the top region generally. This is IRTS, IRAS, IRPS. I told you from 24 to 21 services are there, 3 have been removed. These are those 3 services. This is the Indian Railway Traffic Service, Indian Railway Account Service, Indian Railway Postal Service, IRPS. In IRTS, Indian Railway Traffic Service, your job is to see which train has to move, which train has to be stopped, which is the higher priority train, etc. So if you are ever traveling in the railway and your train stops because other train has to pass, then an IRTS officer at the back end is to blame. Similarly, if your train passes and other train stops so that your train can pass, you have IRTS officers to thank for. Obviously, they don't work alone, there is a whole team. Indian Railway Account Service, you manage the accounts of the railways. Railways has 5-10 lakh people, and all those accounts are handled by them. Indian Railway Personnel Service, this is the HR department of railways. You handle the job, you handle the railway 7, 8 or whatever number of personnel work in the railways. This is RPF. The full name of this service is Post of Assistant Security Commissioner, Group A in Railway Protection Force. So this is Railway Protection Force. They don't protect the railway passengers. The job of protecting the railway passengers is of GRP, that is the General Railway Police, I think. And the GRP works under the DGP of the state where the railway station is located. For example, for Ambala railway station, which is in Haryana, the DGP of Haryana is the officer for the General Railway Police posted in Ambala. The DGP comes from IPS. These people protect the railway passengers like you and me. The Railway Protection Force protects the assets of the railway. They protect the engines, coaches, wagons, and various equipment and assets present at the railway stations like ATMs and water machines, drinking water machines, etc. This is Indian Defence Estate Service. Defence estate means defence land. You may have seen that at many places there are place names which have the name Kent at the end. For example, I live in Ambala district in Haryana. So there is a place known as Ambala Kent. There is another place near to my home. For example, the Nahan Kent. The Kent means cantonment. This is the place where either the army or the air force or the navy is posted, or any of those two, or all three of them could be posted. They handle the land of those areas. They see that any land encroachment is not there, how land development has to occur, has to take place, where air force planes have to land, where the residences for the persons working in the defense services are to be located, where schools, hospitals are to be created, etc., and their upkeep. This is the Indian Information Service. These convey to us the information from the government. For example, they work in Doordarshan DD1 channel. Behind DD1 channel, these people are working. Similarly, DD News and the magazines published by government, for example, Yojana and Kurukshetra, these people handle it. They work under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. ITS is Indian Trade Service. Trade Service people handle the international trade of India. They recommend how we can increase the trade, how we can deal better with other nations. This is Indian Corporate Law Service. Corporate law means so many companies registered in India work under the Companies Acts. There are various Companies Acts. For example, one of the Companies Act is Companies Act 2013. So their job is implementing these Companies Acts. All these services are Group A services. These are Group B services. Group A services means you are the head, you have the highest amount of power, authority, and your salary is also high. For Group A, the basic pay is 56,100, and after adding TADA, etc., you get approximately 70 to 80,000 rupees. In Group B, it is less. I don't know the exact amount, but it could be 40,000 basic pay, and after TADA, you could be getting 50-60,000. In Group B, your head will be a person from Group A. Let's start. In case of Armed Forces Headquarters Service, you work in the headquarters of various armed forces. For example, there are 3 armed forces in India: Army, Navy, and Air Force. Coast Guard is not considered as an armed force. So, you work in the headquarters, where Army headquarters is, where Air Force headquarters is, where Navy headquarters is. You also work in New Delhi, and your job is to act as a bridge between the civilian government and the bureaucracy and the members of the defense forces. This is Delhi Andaman Nicobar Civil Service. Then other is the Delhi Andaman Nicobar Police Service, DANIPS and DANIPS. These people work in the various UTs of India. For example, they work in both these Delhi, Andaman Nicobar, Lakshadweep, Daman and Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli. They work under these union territories. Pondicherry has its own civil service and police service, Pondix and Pondips. So this is how it happens. Here you are a Group B officer. Your head will be someone from Group A. For example, let's say you are posted in Delhi as a DANIPS officer. So your head will be, in this case, your head will be the IAS posted in Delhi, who is again Group A. If you are in DANIPS police service, your head will be IPS, posted in Delhi from Group A, and so on. These posts are equivalent to what state civil service is about. For example, in Haryana, there is a Haryana Public Service Commission like UPSC, Union Public Service Commission for the center. It selects people for Haryana Administrative Service, Haryana Police Service, etc. So the DANIPS officer are equivalent to these officers. The DANIPS is equal to Haryana Police Service. Just like Haryana Administrative Services, people working under IAS in Haryana and Haryana Police Service working under IPS of Haryana. Similarly, if you are posted in Delhi, you work under IAS of Delhi. If you are posted in Andaman Nicobar, you work under IAS of Andaman and Nicobar, and so on. Same for police service. This is again the same Pondicherry civil service and Pondicherry police service. In Pondicherry civil service, you again work under the IAS posted in Pondicherry, and in Pondicherry police service, you work under the IPS posted in Pondicherry. This is the brief profile of all these services, 21 services, of which you can become a member. The rest of the things, for example, the details which we have skipped in the notification, I will do tomorrow. I will also tell you about my journey from 2013 to 2021 this year, how it has proceeded. Then we may start with the syllabus. If you have any questions, you can post in the comment section. Thank you.